So my topic today is Hanukkah, and in many ways, Fiddler on the Roof is a Hanukkah story of sorts. And Fiddler tells the story of Jewish shtetl life in the early 20th century in Russia. It centers on Tevye, a milkman in a small Jewish village of Anatevka. Tevye represents the town as he struggles to hold on to his faith and his family and his Jewish identity amidst change and rising anti-Semitism. And tragically, the play ends as they're forced to leave Anatevka, the only home they've ever known. As Abby Tang, also our director, wrote in our playbill, Fiddler is not just the story of a milkman, but a reflection of the Jewish experience across thousands of years. To be evicted from Anatevka is to be occupied by Rome, expelled from Spain, or displaced across Europe. Yenta put it plainly, so we suffer in silence, yes, we suffer. I don't think I got that fully right, but Yenta's over there. And of course, when Avram asks, Rabbi, wouldn't this be a good time for the Messiah to come? The rabbi answers wearily, we'll just have to wait for him someplace else. How about the Hanukkah story? The Hanukkah story, we learn as children, feels the opposite. The Greeks desecrate the temple. Judah Maccabee rises up and drives them out. The temple is purified. 1 day of oil lasts 8 days. The story is true. It's good. But beneath the story runs a deeper current, one that actually mirrors Anatevka. Hanukkah wasn't only a battle between Jews and Greeks. It was also a struggle within the Jewish people over identity and over assimilation. Hellenistic culture was the most advanced and sophisticated and attractive civilization that the world had ever known. It broke down cultural barriers and promoted universalist ideas. It was a melting pot. It was the center of the world. And a new kind of Jewish life began to emerge, Greek-speaking and increasingly detached from traditional Jewish practice in the 160s BCE. At the time, the temple itself was funded by Greek authorities. Temple leaders formed alliances with the Hellenists. A gymnasium was actually built in Jerusalem, and even festivals honoring Hercules were funded by Jews placed in the temple from temple funds. This is the real tension of the Hanukkah story and where it lies. Many Jews believed that the old Jewish ways felt outdated or embarrassing, so groups arose that actively promoted assimilation. The book of Maccabees tells us that some Jews even underwent painful surgeries to remove the marks of circumcision. I don't know how that works. Some no longer wanted to be Jewish at all, but others, interestingly, wanted to remain Jewish, but in a Hellenized, assimilated way. So we can understand this temptation. But history turns, as it always does. Antiochus IV comes to power and outlawed Jewish practice entirely. Observing Torah became a capital crime. A statue of Zeus was erected in the temple. Antiochus didn't see himself as a villain, however. He believed he was modernizing Judaism, saving it from what he saw as outdated relics of the past. He was pluralistic. He was enlightened, a hero in his own eyes and in the eyes of many assimilated Jews. So this wasn't simply Jews versus Greeks. That's part of it. But it was a battle for Jewish life. It was a battle for Jewish identity. And in 167 BCE, a priest named Matthias finally had enough, and when a Hellenized Jewish man stepped forward to offer a pig on the altar, Matthias killed him and fled with his sons into the hills. And after his death, his son Judah Maccabee led a 3-year guerrilla campaign against both Greek forces and, regrettably, Hellenized Jews. Eventually, the king withdrew his troops, returned control of the temple to Jewish hands, and yet even then, the temple leadership was so assimilated that they left the statue of Zeus standing in the temple for a year. The temple had become more of a Hellenistic civic center than a house of God. So Judah Maccabee gathered his followers once again, returned to Jerusalem, and drove out the Hellenized priesthood. And on the 25th of Kislev, they rededicated the temple. And the 8-day celebration, which was intended to echo Sukkot, centered on the menorah, the symbol of God's presence. And according to enduring tradition later recorded in the Mishnah, the small amount of consecrated oil meant for 1 day lasted 8. And I think this is the deeper story why we light the 8-branched menorah. We're not commemorating a military victory per se, but the reclaiming of Jewish faith and the reclaiming of Jewish identity and Jewish life. In many ways, Fiddler on the Roof brings together the different tensions that we see in Hanukkah. On one level, it's a story of anti-Semitism from the outside. The Tsar's army descends on Anatevka to carry out a pogrom right in the middle of a Jewish wedding, shattering the heart of Jewish life. I mean, a Jewish wedding, that's intentional. But at the same time, Anatevka wrestles with pressures from within of change and assimilation. First, the authority of the matchmaker and Papa gives way to love as model and Seidel choose one another. Tevye bends. Then Perchik arrives with political radicalism and universal ideas from Kiev, values that begin to overshadow shtetl life, tradition, and even Torah. Hadel doesn't challenge her father. She leaves Anatevka entirely, following Perchik into revolution in Siberia. Tevye bends again. And finally, Chava falls in love with a non-Jew, part of the Tsar's army itself, crossing a line that Tevye cannot cross. And we feel it. The audience is torn, just like Tevye is torn. He says, if I accept them, I turn my back on my faith and my people. If I bend that far, I will break. And our hearts break with Tevye and with Chava at the same time as he cries out, Chava, no, and leaves her behind. In some ways, this is my story too. My grandmother's family came from Russia in 1904, the very year Fiddler takes place. 10 years later, my grandmother was born in New York City. She was disowned when she married my grandfather because he was not Jewish. That was a terrible thing for her father to do. And yet, generations later, I'm the only one in my family who deeply identifies as Jewish. Tension. Tevye's tension. Perhaps that's the fiddler himself, balancing precariously on the roof, trying to play a desperate melody. Anti-Semitism is a deep and ancient evil that rises in every generation, in different forms and under different names. It targets Jewish people because of what we're meant to carry, God's light into the world, and that makes it uniquely destructive. As terrible as open persecution is, there's a quieter, insidious form that has always accompanied it, not just pressure from the outside, but erosion from within, when Jews slowly lose the desire to remain Jewish at all. This too has threatened the Jewish flame in every generation. Now, fighting assimilation is complicated. I'm a modern Jew. We're all modern Jews. The Judaism of the Maccabees would likely feel intolerable to us today. And going back to the shtetl isn't an option. The Jewish world has always changed, many times over across history. I think the real question isn't whether we adapt, we always have. The question is, how do we hold on to our faith and our people in the midst of a changing world? A changing world that's often hostile to Jewish life and Jewish faith. Where is the line between adapting and losing Jewish identity? At what point does bending become breaking? Tevye never answers these questions. In the end, the Tsar's army forces them to leave Anatevka. But we're given a clue just before they go when Tevye says, Chava, God be with you. And at that moment, in the end of the play, there's a moment when the audience always laughs, when Golda snaps at her younger daughters, behave yourselves, you're not in America yet. But behind the laughter is a very serious question. How will the people of Anatevka carry Jewish life into America? The question didn't end with Anatevka. It followed Jews across oceans and generations, and in many ways is still our question today. One answer has been the menorah. Hanukkah has become one of the most widely observed Jewish holidays, even though it's only a minor festival that's not even in the Torah. Why? Perhaps because it's portable. I recently read an interesting article about the origins of Hanukkah as we know it today, and it noted that in the decades after the Maccabean victory, Hanukkah actually gained the most traction in assimilated Jewish communities. More than a celebration of a military victory, Hanukkah became a call, a way to remain faithful to God's Jewish covenant while living in lands shaped by other cultures. Through the simple act of lighting candles, Hanukkah allows even very assimilated Jews to reclaim a visible, embodied Jewish practice in some way. With my grandmother, it was the only thing she did was light Hanukkah candles once a year. to reconnect to the Jewish flame wherever we may be. Now, the Hanukkah story repeats itself again and again and again. Periods of peace lead to assimilation, which is often followed by sudden waves of persecution. The Golden Age of Spain, called the Golden Era for the Jews, gives way to the expulsion in 1492. The Jewish Enlightenment in Germany ends with the catastrophe of the Holocaust. The rhythm is tragically familiar. Hanukkah speaks directly into this rhythm with candles. Rabbi Eli Schlanger was a member of the Jewish community in Australia who was murdered in the violent anti-Semitic attack just before the first day of Hanukkah this year. And before his death, he said, "In the fight against anti-Semitism, the way forward is to be more Jewish, act more Jewish, appear more Jewish." And last Hanukkah, he danced around a menorah mounted on his car with the caption, "The best response to anti-Semitism." Anatevka is a microcosm of our story. As they're forced to leave, again, the beloved rabbi of Anatevka says, "We'll just have to wait for the Messiah someplace else." It's a simple line, but it's filled with Jewish hope. Wherever we're scattered, we carry that hope with us. And as a Messianic Jew, and as someone who played the rabbi in our production, I thought about those words a lot. Part of me wanted to say, we found him already. And yet, we're still waiting for his return. And in the meantime, the world is still filled with suffering. So either way, the truth is this: we're still holding on to the same Jewish hope, carrying Mashiach with us as we go. And that brings us back to light. The menorah is an enduring light, a light that does not burn out. And there's a beautiful Jewish idea that every Jewish soul is a light, like a shamash. And the shamash kindles the other flames. Jewish community is like this. It's how that light is shared and passed on in a dark world. The enduring flame of the Hanukkah teaches us passion for Jewish living, passion for the call that God has placed on our people. Now, what makes us Messianic Jews distinct is not that we love Judaism less or anything like this. It's that we follow the most important Jew who ever walked in this world. And if anything, that should make us, when it comes to passion and commitment, more like the Maccabee than less. Our passion for Yeshua drives our passion for being Jewish, and our passion for being Jewish drives our passion for Yeshua because he is the Jewish heartbeat, and you can't remove the heart from the body. Historically, Yeshua has been seen by many Jews as the doorway out of Judaism. And because of that painful history, Messianic Jews have often been viewed as a threat. But it isn't meant to be that way. And in many ways, modern Messianic Judaism has been a movement of return, a Baal Teshuvah movement, where Yeshua finds Jewish people who are already drifting away and leads us back in. That's my story. That's many of your stories. Yeshua led you back home to Judaism. Once we light the menorah, the Messiah is kindled in our souls. And the true light of the world, we don't lose our Jewish identity when he's inside. We rediscover it. We rediscover the menorah. And now we're called to hold on to both. So yes, we need to be Maccabees for Yeshua as Jews, to stand with him and with our Jewish identity because it's the same passion, the same flame. And perhaps for the first time in modern history, we're a people learning to hold these two lights, the light of Jewish identity and covenant and the light of Messiah, the light of Israel, until they become one flame that we can hand down to the next generation. And that reminds me of a time at Camp Orlador when this happened so vividly, when we were our host Jewish camp, Surprise Light Camp, invited us to lead Havdalah for their camp. And they had about 300 kids in a circle like this, Jewish kids, and they had us in the middle, in the center of this group. And their rabbi invited me to join her in the middle, and we merged our Havdalah candles together. And it was beautiful. In a way, that's the picture. So this is Hanukkah. let us remember who we are. Remember who we're called to be. Like a fiddler on the roof, we stand without all the answers, balancing carefully, unsure which way we might fall, and still we play. Let us play our Messianic Jewish song with faith and courage. Treasure this Messianic Jewish community. Treasure the menorah that continues to burn here, and let your heart burn brightly with Yeshua's Jewish light. Shabbat Shalom. Hag Sameach. Thank you, everybody. We're going to close our service. Oh, thank you, guys. That's very kind. Josh, if you come forward and we'll pray the Elenu together on page 93. Please rise if you're able. For Messiah.